Alright, so today we're going to cover what's called central angles. If you remember, guys, central angles is simply located at the center of the circle. You can see E is my center of my circle. I have two radii right there from E to W and E to F. 140 is the angle from here all the way to here. That's what my central angle is, 140. Right there in the red says the measure of a central angle and its arc it intercepts are equal. So what that means, guys, is if I follow these lines here, measurement from W all the way over here to F is also 140. So central angles and the intercepted arcs are going to be the same angle measurement. Pretty simple. Alright, so these are two problems really quick that we're going to go over. Remember, guys, central angles and their arcs are exactly the same. So we have an angle right here, 68. All it wants to know is that arc right there. So that has to be 68 degrees. Pretty simple. Here they gave us 80. We don't need to know that number. But also, if I know the arc, I can go back to the angle. So guys, to go from here, it's just the same. So this is 100 right there. So 100 on the right, 68 on the left. Pretty simple. Alright, so problem up here on the top right, we have 60 degrees right here and 30 degrees. They just simply want to know this one. So to go from 30 to the question mark, remember it's the same. So that means it's simply just 30 degrees. Pretty simple to start off. Alright, so here it says this means measurement of angle KHL. That means angle. So first I find K, and I go to H, and I go to L. So technically we're trying to find this angle here. Now, I don't know this arc anymore. I don't know it. So there's two ways to do this, guys. Notice that this line right here is what we call diameter. And if you remember, one of the things we learned is a semicircle. If you remember, semicircle cuts it in half. Okay, so this is considered a semicircle. You also remember that a circle equals 360 degrees. Just like if I spun around a circle, 360 degrees. So if a semicircle is half a circle, half of 360 is simply 180. Okay, let's apply that knowledge. Okay, from J all the way to L has to be 180. I already know that this is 115. So how do I find this? I simply take 180 minus 115, and I do some subtraction here, and I go, okay, bam, bam, I get 7, I get 10, this is 5, 6. That means this angle, this arc measurement has to be 65 degrees. Which means if this is 65 degrees, the x is also 65 degrees. So you're going to have to remember that when you see the diameter, we're going to have to think of 180. It's going to happen a lot in these problems. So that's what we did. We took 180 minus 115, and these are the same. Alright, so let's first, before we even dive into these problems, let's determine what they're looking for. In the left one, they're looking for the measurement of arc WX. So WX, arc, guys, it literally means the arc. So that means we're looking for that angle measurement. Now, if you look on the one on the right, it says angle WYU. So if I find W, I find Y, and I find U. So it's actually looking for that entire angle. It wants to know the entire thing. So you got to make sure to add whatever you're looking for. All right, let's jump back to the left. All right, there's a couple ways I'm going to tell you how to do this problem. You decide which way you want to do it, and you go about it. I'm going to show you two ways. First thing I'm going to show you is utilize, if you remember back in Unit 6, we talked about vertical angles. That's going to be utilized right now. Angles. If you remember what that is, great. That means if you have an intersection here, these angles are the congruent. So if you remember, this is 129. That means this is 129. We know that because they're central angles. Vertical angles means if this is 129, that's 129. Which makes it this central angle is, so does the arc. So you can see there. Bam. So that's one way to do it. Let me show you the other way that we kind of just used on this last slide. So this right here, guys, is called the diameter, which means that this plus this angle adds up to 180. Okay, if we know that they add up to 180, we simply take 180 minus 129. You do some subtraction, you get 10, you get 1, and you get 5. You get 51. Okay, so if this is 51, this V to X is also a diameter, which means that this one and this one have to add up to 180. Okay, so let's take 180 minus 51. Okay, cross that off. That's 7, that's 10, 9, 2, and then we still have the 1. So it means, again, it's also 129. Either way is correct. Remember, I use vertical angles in my first explanation. I go from here to here, from here to here, and then from here to here. In my second explanation, I use the fact that I know that diameters create 180 degrees. That's why I went from here to here, and then here to here. You can use either definition. Alright, let's look at the right one. I need some more. So it says here I need to find this entire length here. I have no diameters. Guys, you should be able to know I have no diameters because I have no straight lines. See how that's kind of weird? That's not a triangle. That's not an angle or a diameter. So we know that this is x and this is x. We know that they're the same. If you guys look right here, these little angle markers means that those are the same. So it also is. So there's two ways I'm going to show you how to do this problem. Look right here. Actually, you don't even need to know that they're x. Look right here. I know that this is 55 and that's 145. I need to know this angle measurement right here of the arc, and then that'll tell me my answer, because my answer is this whole big angle. So if I take 360, which is the total, and subtract 145 minus 55, I'm going to get the huge arc left over. So if I take 360 minus 145 minus 55, it's 160. So that means my whole big angle is 160, which means the angle I'm looking for, which is WVU, is also 160. So that's one way to do it. But here, let me show you something else. Oops. It says here that this is congruent to that. These two are congruent to each other. That means whatever this is got to be the same. So 55 plus 145 plus x equals 360. I must add them all four of those up. They must give me 360. So if I were to simplify this, technically 2x plus 200 equals 360. Okay? So that means 2x equals 160. I got 160 because I took 360 minus 200, and I divided by 2, and I got x equals 80, which tells me that this is 80, and that's 80. Well, if that's 80 and that's 80, if I need to know the whole thing, just add them together, 80 plus 80 is still 160. So I showed you two ways to do this problem, guys. You're going to see a lot of problems that are going to be solved by multiple ways. You're going to have to get around that. Alright, this problem, we kind of encountered this problem before in the previous slide. On the one on the left, you can see we have two x's. So once again, I'm going to show you two different ways to do this problem. You choose which way you feel is best for you. But the first one I'm going to use is called vertical angles. In my opinion, it's a little easier. What that means is, if this is 138, this is 138, we know that because that's a central angle. If this is x plus 141, these two have to be the same. And the reason they have to be the same is what's called vertical angles. If you get an intersection like this is congruent to this, and these are congruent to that. That's how vertical angles work. We talked about that in Unit 6, so you kind of should remember that. So pretty much that means 138 equals x plus 141. I subtract, I'm going to get x equals negative 3. And it's okay to get a negative because the x does not represent a side length or an angle measurement, it just represents if I add it to 141. That's it. So that's one way to do it. Pretty simple, nothing too complicated. The other way, I'll show you, it's just like this. So we know that this angle is congruent to this arc. We know that. We know that this is a diameter, and so is this one. So that means this angle plus whatever this is adds up to 180. Okay, so 180 minus 138, and I get 7, 10, 2, 4, 42. And I keep going, I do the same thing I did there, I take 180 minus 42, I get 138. And then now, wow, these two have to be congruent, which makes that go right back before 138 equals x plus 141. And I can solve it, I still get the same thing, x equals negative 3. There we go, I think that was the last thing I got. So two ways to do it, up to you to decide. Alright, so with these, I'm just going to show you one way to do these problems, so I'm not spending way too much time showing you both ways. But you can see that this problem is similar from the last couple we've worked on. So if you see a method that I've used before, I'm actually going to use one method for the left one, and I'm going to actually use a different method for the right one. So the left one, if this is 50, this has to be 50. We have vertical angles here, so those are congruent. So I'm going to do 6x plus 2 equals 50. I subtract by 2, 6x equals 48. I divide by 6, and it gives me x equals 8. That's my answer to the left one. Now my right one, these are not going to be congruent. But what I am going to do is this is a diameter. So that means this plus this angle, this arc angle measurement is going to add up to 180. So I'm going to take 180 minus 45. Take that, I get 7, 10, 5, 3. I get 135. So I know from central angles that those two have to be the same. So there we go. Subtract 3 over, get 132 equals negative 44, and I'm going to take 132 divided by negative 44, and I'm gonna get x equals negative 3. Oops. X equals, oops, forgot the x. Actually, no x there. X right here. X equals negative 3. So there we go. So kind of two different ways to think about this because of where my angles were located. Alright, so we're going to talk about these problems. Make sure you always read the directions. Directions might not always say solve for x. So when you see the right one, it tells you to solve for the arc length. Make sure you understand what you're looking for. So in this left one, what we're going to do first is with the x being out there, I want to know what this angle is because we know that those two add up to 180, but I also know that this angle and this angle are congruent. So the first thing I'm going to do is take 180 minus 140, and I get 40. So that means this one is going to be 40. So I know that 40 equals 8x. Simply divide, and I get x equals 5. So that's what I know in the left one. I figured out that it was 40 degrees. Use that knowledge to equal it. Okay, the one on the right. I know that this is a right angle. Well, even before that, it's telling me to find the arc length from W to X. You can see that this is here. So it's not asking you to find what X equals. It's asking you to take X and plug it back in. So I know that these two, since this is a diameter, these two are semicircles, or combined are semicircles, which means that they add up to 180. So 11x plus 24, I'm going to skip a step and write 35x. I got 35 because I took 11x plus 24. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to add them together and equal to 180. I'm going to add 5 and equal to 180. So that's what I did. I just combined like this guy and this guy. Saved a step. I subtract by 5 from both sides. I get 35x equals 175. That's 180 minus 5. And I'm going to simply take 175 divided by 35. And that's going to give me x equals 5. So a lot of you guys are going to say, oh, I'm done. X equals 5. My answer is 5. I'm done. Well, if that was a multiple choice question, I can guarantee that 5 is going to be an answer. That is not your answer. It wants to know from x to w. That's right here. That's where 24 is at. So what you have to do is type in 5 for 24x. 24 times 5 is 120. So the answer to the one on the right is 120 degrees. That's what this one comes out to be. So make sure you read the directions. It'll tell you exactly what to look for and what your answer should be. Alright, so these are a little more complex problems. Make sure to, once again, read what it's asking you to find. You can see in the left one, it's asking you to find an angle measurement, W or VTW. So it's asking for that exact angle right there. This one's asking for HGI, so it's asking for that angle right there. So let's look at this, the one on the left. We have a diameter. We know that's a diameter because it's a straight line that goes through the center. So that means this plus this will add up to 180. If I take 15 plus 30, that's 45. That'll be 45x equals 180. All I have to do is simply take 180 divided by 45, and I get 4. So x equals 4. Remember, that's not my answer. The problem says find this angle measurement. If I remember from central angles, I know that this and this are the same. So if this is something, that is that. So all I have to do is take 4 and type it in. 30 times 4 is 120. There you go. So my answer to the left one. Now the one on the right. Now I'm looking for this angle here. Well, if you remember vertical angles, these two are congruent. So if these two angles are congruent, these two arcs are congruent. So we just have to make them equal to each other. Subtract a 24 from both sides. I'm going to get 2x. I'm going to add the 3 over equals 6. So what I did was I subtracted 24 from both sides and I added 3. So I just moved them over. And my answer is going to be x equals 3. Once again, I'm not x equals 3. I have to plug it back in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug it in for here. Because remember, whatever this is, it's going to be the same as that. So I'm going to take, I'll just do it in my calculator. 26 times 3 minus 3. 75. So my answer to the right one is 75 degrees.